Welcome back to Rise and Reinvent, the podcast where resilience meets reinvention. Today's guest is Heather Newman, a woman of quiet power and profound impact. Known as the Silent Storm, Heather has built a career leading complex projects, transforming business operations, and influencing change with a voice that doesn't shout, but it resonates deeply. Born and raised in Jamaica, Heather's journey took a bold turn when she moved to the United States, leaving behind familiarity to carve out success in a brand new environment. In this episode, she shares what it means to reinvent without losing yourself, how failure shaped her confidence, and why leading with faith, structure, and a little bit of style can make all the difference. Whether you're navigating change, learning to lead, or simply seeking inspiration, this episode will leave you both grounded and lifted. Let's dive in. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Heather Newman, an accomplished project professional with extensive experience in the corporate world. She has a track record of successfully leading complex initiatives, streamlining processes, and driving business transformation. She has built her brand as a silent storm who gets results by influencing and leading in a strong but gentle manner. She is also passionate about home decor, styling, organization, blending creativity with structured problem solving, and to top it off, faith and family. I am so pleased to welcome you, Heather. Welcome to Rise and Reinvent.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Nicole.
We are so pleased to hear from you today and excited about this conversation. So, the first step I'd love is for you to just describe yourself, not your job, but you as a person, in about 3 minutes.
I'd like to think of myself, and this is not only based on how I see myself, but based on feedback that I've gotten from other people. I am a solid human being, but I'm also a resourceful woman. I have managed to maintain all the values and all that was placed in me while I was growing up with my village. And when I say village, I mean not just my immediate family, but my rather large extended family. I'm from the Caribbean, so extended families are very common. Our extended families are not just our aunts and uncles and cousins, they're brothers and sisters, other mothers and fathers. So I've had an extensive village growing up, influenced by God fearing, Christ centered, hardworking people. So those values have stuck with me all through my life. So if you are around me at any time, you will see those threads, very visible, very apparent. So I like to think of myself as a stable, very, very structured human being. And,
Okay.
I believe in respect. I believe in, um, hard work, going for what you want, and doing it in a way that doesn't compromise your values at the end of the day.
Understood. Okay, great. So, in your bio, I mentioned Silent Storm. Tell us a little more about that.
So I'll just dial it back a little bit to growing up. So I was always a very shy, reserved individual. Doesn't mean that didn't have a lot going on in my mind or I didn't have a lot of influence on people or anything like that. But I wasn't talkative. I didn't like to be in the forefront or anything like that. I mean, that's still true today. But um, you know, I my forays since then haven't allowed me to always be in the background. But what I've realized or found out about myself is that, even though I have a gentle personality in general, um, people listen to me. People value what I have to say. They value my opinion because I'm approachable. So whenever complex situations come up, as they always do, especially in corporate environments or even in life in general,
Mhm.
um, people will listen to me because I said I was structured. So people listen to the way I think through situations and whatever I can value I add to it. Sometimes they see things from a different angle and they're able to, come along on the journey because the way I see things is not, I can't eat an elephant, right? Try as I might, I can't.
Right.
So, so I like to take things a step at a time. So, one little hurdle, the next hurdle. I mean, you have the end goal in sight, but one hurdle at a time, we work through that and we know we can do it all. So you understand your limitations, you know where you want to get to, you think it through, and you take steps towards that. And the other thing is that I've had situations where people will think, oh, she's not saying anything. She has nothing to add here. And then they will see the impact. It's like an undercurrent, growing up in the Caribbean, we're close to the ocean, the sea. And if you've been in that environment, you'll be in the water. You
Mhm.
won't see the current, you don't see it, but you feel it and you see the results. You see it taking things out to see that, you don't know what the force is that brings it. So I've had feedback that is the way I operate. So I'm on the ground, I'm working with people, talking to different folks, and I don't know if I can necessarily take credit for the way I am, but that I have observed that. So that is where the word silent storm comes in.
That resonates with me. Now that you've described it in that way, I totally understand. You're
Yeah.
not the one who's standing on top of the table like, this must happen this way. But you get the influence, you make it happen in your own way,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Mm, that is good. All right. So, my next question. So, this podcast is really about rise and reinvent, right? With every successful career, there's usually a story around pivots and reinvention that happens along the journey. Can you share a defining moment in your life that forced you to reinvent yourself?
Ah, that's interesting. I can think of a few, but I'll probably stick with the most impactful one.
Hmm.
So, a few years ago, I'm scared to say the number, at least 13, 14 years ago, I made a huge decision in my career. I moved from my native home in Jamaica and came to the US. Now, how that happened is nothing short of a miracle because we know that's not an easy path to take, but it happened for me. And, I'm grateful. So, coming here, it was an uphill battle. Where I was coming from, I was already in a, fairly stable career path. I had progressed to a reasonable level while I was there, and leaving that all behind, coming here, not knowing what lies ahead, um, I decided to do it anyway. It took me about a year to really break through, and that again was nothing short of miraculous. Gave me a year to really think through, what I was doing, whether I made the right choice. There are times when I thought, um, maybe this wasn't a good idea, but I did not feel like giving up. It wasn't to the point where I said, no, I'm packing up, I'm going home. It never ever came to that. So
Okay.
coming here, the real pivot though was getting into the environment. And even though I'm from Jamaica. It's still part of the Western world. It's not far away from the United States. We have cable TV and we see what goes on here. Um, the culture was hugely different.
Mhm.
You know, apart from or the culture within a specific organization, I just found that the corporate environment was different as a whole.
Yes.
So having to, being the outsider, I didn't speak like everybody else. I didn't go to a recognizable school that, my other colleagues would have attended, but I knew what I knew. So I leveraged that. I was confident in my skills. I was confident in what I knew, and I leveraged that. And within no time, I was recognized as one of the stronger project team members there in that organization. So the pivot and the adjustments I had to make mentally, and even I give you a little tidbit. So there are some words. Jamaica is very heavily British based. So our words, our pronunciation is very, very British. So there are a couple words that have opposite meaning in America that's in the British vernacular. So I'd be in meetings and people are saying, let's table that. And I'm waiting for them to talk about it, but they don't. And I'm like, what are they
Wow.
doing? Didn't they say we're going to table that? For us, if you table something, you talk about it, you put it on the table literally. But here, table means parking it. So I've had to adjust to those little nuances of, within the corporate environment, not knowing what certain terms meant. People say they're out of pocket. I'm like, what does that mean? Out of pocket for
Mhm.
me means you're being rude or inappropriate.
Okay. Okay.
Out of pocket here means you're out. You're
Right.
out for
Yes.
the day or something like that. So just those little things, I would say micro differences in corporate environment, they can have a big impact because it affects communication, it affects understanding, and it also affects the way you react and all of that. So I had to learn a whole new corporate culture, understand that people are not as direct here, in the organization I was in. So I was listening more and really observing the environment, and I managed to be successful in it. So I think that was the biggest defining moment for me, where I felt like I could branch out and be successful in whatever environment I'm placed in here.
Okay. What kind of support system did you have through that transition to learn the terms and to learn the culture? How did you adjust?
I was literally on my own
Okay.
because there weren't many people. I just had to understand context. As I said, I'm not a very talkative, being on top of everybody's voice and all of that. So I tried to understand context, tried to really soak in what was going on in conversations, in rooms, and all that. I saw how people interacted with each other. And I really took note of that. So it then influenced the way I would behave in those circumstances. There are some times when I've had to ask questions, what do you mean when you say that? So instead of, assuming that, I'm in conversations or in a meeting with someone and they say something and I totally either don't know what they're saying or just misunderstand, I'll ask someone I trust to say, okay, they said this. What do you think? What does this mean? Because I realized that it was a term that was used a lot. It wasn't,
Mhm.
contextual to that person. So there are times I've had to do that, but it was, I had to figure it out.
Okay, so in this example, you found a reason to reinvent yourself, like moving across countries,
Yes.
starting in a new role, having to prove yourself.
Yes.
Um, how do you reinvent yourself while staying authentic to who you are?
That is a very, very good question. So reinventing yourself does not, in my view, it does not mean you try to be something that you're not. Reinventing yourself to me is adapting to spaces and environment, but not assimilating.
Mm,
You know what I mean? You don't follow the crowd, but you observe, you learn and see how you inject your authentic self in that environment. So that's how I view it. You know, you don't I never want to lose who I am, especially from a values perspective. I need to have peace at the end of the day and everything I do, and my choices are going to be guided. Not saying that, every single choice I make is always the right one, but at least I try to stay true. I always say to people, if you can't be yourself, are you going to be somebody else?
yeah,
It just doesn't compute. It doesn't add up. So
agreed. Yeah.
don't assimilate, but inject your observe and inject who you are into the environment appropriately.
Absolutely. Adjust and assimilate, two very different terms with two very
Yes.
different meanings. Completely agree with you there. Um, what role did failure play in shaping the person that you are today?
Ah, so I can tell you that failure was a hard lesson for me. Growing up, I've always been successful at almost everything that I've tried. You know, people say call it overachieving, but I've been pretty much been successful and close to the top of, school academically and, any little venture I try. My father always used to say, "Oh, you try things and you just move on, huh?" Because, I would learn to do this and I try it. And once I conquer it, I want to try something else. So, failure wasn't something that I had to deal with very early on, but throughout university, my first year, I failed. I failed a math course,
Literally.
literally failed a math course.
Okay.
And it was, I didn't think, I was like, maybe university is not for me. How can I fail this thing? And I spoke to someone who I trusted that, had the skills to talk me through it. But what that taught me was that failure is not the problem. Failure is not your enemy. It's not getting back up when you fail. Because there was always a lesson to be learned there, and that was what he reinforced to me. That he acknowledged how I felt about
Hmm.
failure, but he's like, this is not the end. This is your first year. You have 3 4 more years ahead of you. So this is, what can you learn from this? And the moment he said that, I thought back to, maybe I could have asked for more help. Maybe I could have worked with some of the folks who were seemed to be getting it. I just tried to manage on my own with the stresses of, traveling to and from campus and all of that. And, it just didn't work for me. And that was, I took the opposite approach for the second semester. I was, those guys that, those guys that were on top of everything, who knew what was going on. I'm like, hey, what's going on here? I need some help. And they were more than willing, but I thought that, hey, they have their own stuff going on. They have no time for me. But it taught me, ask for help when you need it.
Hmm.
You're not alone in this world. There's not much in life that you have to do on your own.
And has that come, I don't know if the word is full circle, or has that come true in your career and your work life as well, in addition to academia?
Oh yeah. So as far as failure in a work life, um, I can't say I've had outright failures. There are things that just didn't work out the way, I expected it. But it wasn't a case where it didn't work and it fell flat on its face or whatever. Most of these environments are set up for collaboration and helping us be successful as a team. I mean, as a project manager, almost everything is kind of team oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that I reinforce, not just for myself, but for folks on my team. Ask for help. The worst that could happen is we don't have it right now, but we're gonna get it because it's our delivery. It's not just about you. So even though when I have challenges, um, I'm not afraid to go to people who are in a position to assist, to say, this is a challenge that I'm having or we are having. Um, do you have any recommendations? Can you help here or whatever? And also, um, something that I've been doing a lot more, over the last several years is asking in a mentoring sense. So, how to have conversations with certain people. So, again, it kind of stems from cultural differences as well. So, I'll go and say, hey, I have this situation. Um, this is how I see it, but I'm not sure how to approach it. What do you recommend? Can you coach me through that? And it works. And I've done the same for for other people too, who are higher ups than I am, because I'm working with people directly. So that definitely is, I think, is a big change from what I've had previously been accustomed to. Is figure it all on your own. Do your thing, come back to me with a solution. I'm
Oh,
asking for help now.
okay. When you say you were accustomed to that, is that in Jamaica?
Yeah,
Or
so
okay.
yeah, a lot of well, the last few let's say managers or people who I had to report into would always say, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions.
Yes.
So that kind of, at least for a person like me, it's gonna not make me come to you because I might not have the solution. If I had the solution, I'd do it. So, they didn't foster an environment that would allow you to brainstorm and figure things out. They want you to go do it yourself. So, I mean, I'm not saying the whole culture is like that, but my experience was like that for a few years. So,
Yeah, there are various different, and I think sometimes it can be based on the leader and
yeah,
their preferences, right?
yes.
Because I've had both, what you mentioned. What along the lines of what you just said, I feel like every business professional should have a coach, someone you can go to that has the skills, the frameworks to help you navigate, a mentor, someone that purely gives you advice, right? I've been in your shoes. Here's what worked for me. Here's some other ideas to consider. And then a sponsor. And that sponsor is someone who really talks great about you and advocates for you when you're not in the room.
Mm,
And so I'm not sure how that has applied in your life, but to me, that is a critical way to continue to grow in your career, because you can't do it alone. You just
yeah,
can't, especially when you get to certain levels at a company.
yeah.
And so that is what I definitely advocate.
Yes, I can see that. That hasn't necessarily been the way I've viewed things, but the more I'm in the corporate space, the more I see that that how helpful that can be.
Absolutely.
So if you
Yes.
don't have it today, work toward it for the
Yeah.
future.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yep, you're welcome. What's one leadership lesson you learned the hard way?
Ah, hmm. That one has stumped me a little bit, but let me see. So, I can think of a situation where, managing projects, right? Project managers are not the folks we work with do not report into us.
Yeah.
We lead
Right.
without authority.
Yes.
So, um, one thing I've learned the hard way in that situation, because that's the situation I've been in probably for most of my career,
Hmm.
is sometimes you have to let things fall. If you don't let things fall, sometimes the lesson won't be learned. So you might have team members who are not necessarily pulling the weight that they should. And despite your efforts in, finding out what problems they have to see how you can unblock them and move things forward, they don't respond at all for whatever reason. I don't know. It could be a trust issue. Maybe they think that I shouldn't be asking. I don't know. And sometimes I would, you know, speak to another team member and say, hey, this isn't going well. Can you step in and help here? But then the person doesn't change. So sometimes you just gotta let it fall and let them be accountable for what they are to deliver. I'm not in the business of saving people who don't want to be saved. So, I've done that before and it'll come back and bite you because you end up with the same person on your project and you have the situation just repeating itself. And yeah, so I don't do that anymore. I let things fall.
Okay. Excellent. What's the one thing you wish more professionals knew about reinventing themselves?
So, there are times when you'll talk to people in general and they'll say, I'm just the way I am, deal with it, kind of thing. And to some extent, you are the way you are, right? But is it working? Is it working for you? Or is it holding you back?
Hmm.
So I would say take stock of what you're doing. How is it impacting you, right? There's also the question of how it's impacting other people, but we'll start with you. How is it impacting you? If it's holding you back, you need to look at yourself. We're not asking you to go be somebody else, but there might be behaviors that you're exhibiting in a certain environment that is not to your advantage, not to your benefit. So, reinventing yourself could just involve a reevaluation of behaviors or even getting feedback. Nothing is wrong with that. People in general are usually okay with providing feedback to you. Say, oh, when I talk to you, don't seem to listen to what we have to say. You talk over me all the time, and that's a problem. Because when you do that, I shut up. So
Right.
we don't have a productive, things like that. So and I'm not saying we have to work on everything at the same time, but look at what really isn't working in an environment and just try to adjust to fix it. Things become behaviors can become permanent if the more you practice it, especially if it's a destructive one. So I would say reinventing yourself in that way will make you a lot more marketable because people will notice either the change. Some people are big on the change, or some people you're okay. You already had it, and they'll say, "Okay, this person is just such. Um, they're insightful. they're good at having conversations, they're good at giving constructive feedback. But some people, they'll look at you and say, oh, when they started, they were this, but now they're that. Such improvement. And that's a good conversation for someone to have about you, and that will take you places.
Okay, absolutely. Yes. And you seem comfortable with doing that. Maybe some others feel like it's a risk or they don't understand, they're scared or have fear
Yeah.
of having those conversations. Which leads me to my next question, which is how do you differentiate between a risk that's worth taking and one that isn't aligned with your purpose or your vision?
It's interesting. I had that thought this morning because um, at the end of the day, success for me is remaining true to who God made me to be while accomplishing the goals that I set out to accomplish. So, um, repeat the question again, please.
No, that was a good answer. I'd rather you go in some more depth around what the why and why that answer and what that
Yeah.
means to you.
So, peace to me, like peace of mind, is very important. So, I'm not that person who is looking at someone else and seeing the success that they have, the path that they're taking, and saying, oh, in order for me to have success, I need to do that. Because that might not be who I am. So I have to look up the gifts that are in me, the gifts that God gave me, and I have to chart my course towards that purpose that He put in me. Just like, anything else. You don't try to keep up with the Joneses. The Joneses might need 5 cars, but you need one,
Right.
right? So i- success is not, it's as individual as the number of persons on this earth, right? Everybody is unique and they're given special gifts that are tailored to them. So I want to stay true to that while I'm trying to do the things that I think I should do. So sometimes I fall flat. Like, I try something and I'm like, oh, this is not working out for me. This is just not meant for me. It doesn't mean you don't try things, right? But you have to look at it from the lens that, okay, I might try this and it doesn't work. Doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It just means that that was not for me. Might need to tweak something. It might need to change course totally. But, you know, you have to stay true to the gifts that are in you. And that's the way I think we accomplish success.
What would you say is your ultimate personal goal?
It's along that same line, right? So even I at the end of the day, I want to be able to, I have, tangible goals, yes. But whatever it is I do, I want to make sure that I am at peace with myself. I can stand up and say, this, I'm doing this or I've done this,
Mhm.
and I can sleep at night. So right now, I'm in this career. I don't expect to be in it forever, but I'm always thinking about things that will bring me um, a level of, I don't even want to say happiness because that happiness is fleeting as far as, that's all I think happiness is fleeting, but I'm always thinking, okay, what next? What am I going to move on to next? And as you said in the intro, that whole area of, designing and organizing, and that is something that I am doing every day. I do it every day. I help my friends, family, and stuff. So I'm doing it, but at the same time, I don't know that that is necessarily what I'm gonna be doing when I decide I'm gonna quit this career. So it's like an everyday thing. I'm not gonna, as I said, I'm not gonna eat the elephant. I just want to know that at the end of the day, I am true to myself. I have peace with whatever I'm doing, and I can feed myself and my family.
Excellent. That is wonderful. Um, my last question is as you continue on this path toward achieving your goals and your joy, what obstacles do you need to overcome in order to continue down that path?
Fear. There is some amount of fear in me. So um, I'm willing to try things, as I said before. But taking things to the next level for me is where the fear comes in. So, I know money is important, right? But I've never been one to chase after it.
Mhm.
So it kind of puts me in kind of a funky spot where I'm like, how do I monetize the things that I'm doing? How do I try to, but that's not the why. That's the problem. That's the thing. So in my mind, there's this battle. Okay, are you doing this for money, or are you trying to make an impact somewhere or other? So when I focus on that, I believe the money will come. But at the same time, I'm like, am I gonna be doing this thing and not make money? you know?
Right.
So, that's one of the things that holds me back a lot. I might sit and write something out and figure out what I can do. I'm listening to all these people on the internet who are saying do this, do that. And it comes back to the whole question of everybody's path is yours. So you have to listen and take from it what is appropriate for you. So I'm still going through that, and I'm trying to figure something out because I realize that I'm not going to be in corporate forever. So I'm going through that, but there's a little amount of fear that's inside of me that I have to overcome and step out boldly, try to, at least take something, have it not work if that's the case,
Mhm.
even if it fails, and then pivot and move on. So I think that's I would say that's the biggest thing for me.
Understood. And there's this quote, and I need to figure out who said it. It wasn't me, but it's do what you love and the money will come.
Yes, I've heard that so many
I've
times.
heard it so many times as well. And, as I look back, I believe it is true. But you can't just sit back and
Right.
wait for it to come.
That's it.
You have to put your name out there. You have to take some risks. You have to
That's it.
market and communicate and sell.
Yeah,
But if you're doing what you love, then that's not as painful as
that's
doing
true.
it with something you don't.
Right. Or pretending to be something you're not,
Yes,
you
absolutely.
know?
Or doing it for someone else and their
Right.
goals. Sometimes people, have a major challenge with that. It's like, well, my wishes and dreams don't align with what you want.
Yes. Yes.
But, if you're doing it for yourself and you're following your passions, then the money will come.
Yes.
Well, excellent. Today has been an amazing conversation. I am so joyful that we had a chance to talk through your journey, your confidence, how you manage a lot of project management efforts, and how you bring project management into your life through transitions. And so I thank you so much for the time today. And I look forward to staying connected with you in the future.
Thank you, Nicole. It was a pleasure talking with you too. And I'm sure we'll connect at some point after this.
Sounds good. Okay, take care.
Thank you.